Topics, we do have a little bit of a new development as we look at the Atlantic Basin. It's been mostly quiet for the past few days, and now we're seeing a 10% chance of development in an area that's near the Bermuda there. That is going to be heading off towards the northeast. This is not expected to pose a threat to the U.S., and it is actually expected to weaken, all thanks to some hair and dust, and it's also going to come in contact with some cooler waters. But this is new as of 6:40 this morning, is that there is an area out in the middle of the Atlantic that is just well away from the U.S. and not posing a threat to the U.S. or Texas. We still have that Saharan dust. Another plume of it actually moving over the Atlantic into the Caribbean, and that's also going to probably give us some more hazy skies on the way here in Houston as we go through maybe by the end of the week into next week. So the Pacific is actually quite active. We already had a few named storms, and there's another area just south of Central America that has a 70% chance of development. That is quite high, but this is also not expecting to pose a threat to the U.S. or Texas in the coming days, as it's usually pretty common for the Pacific to be this busy around this time. Just so you know, the Pacific hurricane season starts on May 15th, actually earlier than the Atlantic season. But here's what I'm tracking in terms of our local weather. Hot and muggy conditions today. We do have those rain chances once again returning into the forecast starting this afternoon, and they're going to ramp up as we head into Monday and Tuesday of this week. So be on the lookout for those scattered showers and storms once again. And so definitely keep in mind that we could see some wet roadways, especially on your commute home if you're heading off to work. Have it already in the back of your mind to give yourself enough time to make it to your destinations. Here's a look at the temperatures right now. We are at 84 at Bush Airport, Sugar Land at 83, Conroe 79, Galveston 86. When you factor in the humidity, it already feels like it's in the 90s right now. So feeling like 93 at Bush Airport, Sugar Land, feeling like 93, 91 at Hobby Airport, and we are expecting our forecast to be a little bit on the warmer side today. We have a little bit more atmospheric moisture in place today, and so we are expecting those heat indices to once again feel as hot as upper 90s, close to 100 degrees. So just keep that in mind to practice those heat safety measures, but be on the lookout for those downpours, especially if you are heading towards the coast. Might see a downpour or two, especially in around the Galveston area. Jamaica Beach at 88, Crystal Beach at 87, High Island at 88 degrees. And so Galveston's looking quiet right now. There is a moderate rip current risk. Waves are going to be between 2 and 3 feet. Southeast winds at 10 miles an hour. We are expecting showers already making their way into southeast Texas from the coast. So we're seeing these little bitty micro specks of downpours that are moving into the coastal areas. And so that's just kind of giving us an idea that the atmosphere is just a little bit unstable. And so when we get towards the afternoon hours, it's going to breed the sea breeze front that's going to bring those showers into our inland areas, especially north of I-10 for today. So we could see an isolated downpour or storm today starting around 2 p.m. through 3 p.m. So just keep that in mind for areas north of I-10. That does include Montgomery County. We could see some flare up of some isolated downpours that could probably bring some wet roadways, or if could bring some, maybe, I wouldn't want to say minor flooding. I think the flooding risk is going to be extremely low for today, but we could see those downpours to pose a risk in terms of slick roadways for this afternoon. And then by Monday, things are going to become a bit more scattered and widespread for the afternoon hours. So that's going to be the start of our rainy days going into next week. So rain chances ultimately increasing by Tuesday and into Wednesday. Nights are going to remain mostly quiet. It's going to be the window of opportunity of storms between 12 and 4 to 5 p.m., which is usually when we see that stormy activity. So rain chances ramping up for this week. We are expecting rain to become a bit more widespread for Tuesday and into Wednesday. And so it's these daily rain chances that are going to be in place, all thanks to that high pressure system that is currently situated off towards the northeast. That is really just going to bring us mostly quiet conditions. It's also going to cause a heat wave for areas out in New York City, even Washington, D.C., Chicago, St. Louis. They're going to see temperatures in the upper 90s, might even surpass 100 out in that region of the U.S. They're actually going to be warmer than us down here in Houston, but it's what happens around those high pressure systems. We usually get these ridge running storms, and we have little lobes of energy that usually like to move around the high, and that's going to move into southeast Texas, and that's going to ultimately fuel storm activity heading into the week. So just keep that in mind, that really is what's going to give us the unsettled weather pattern through the next few days, and rain chances definitely becoming more widespread as we go into those afternoon hours. The Climate Prediction Center calling for above normal precipitation from June 28th to July 2nd. So it's looking more likely that we could see some excess rain in terms of us ending the month on a wetter note going into the next few days as we end the month of June. I can't believe it's already almost July. We're going to be celebrating July 4th before you know it. So high temps in the 90s. 90 for Wednesday. That's going to be the reason why we're seeing those cooler temperatures, because of the rain chances. So as we look at our 7-day forecast, high temps in the mid 90s for today. Few storms possible tomorrow. Rain chances will become more scattered by Tuesday and into Wednesday. And then we're just going to keep those daily rain chances in the forecast at least through the end of the work week into next weekend. So a very unsettled weather pattern once again shaping up here across southeast Texas. And so we are expecting those conditions to remain mostly just active. And so when we look at the daily rainfall that we've seen so far in the months of June, and this is at Bush Airport. I know a lot of us are thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's been really rainy across our area. This is not really uncommon. We usually see wet conditions for the month of June. So we've had so far, I believe 12 days of measurable rainfall in the months of June at Bush Airport. So definitely seeing wet conditions persist across the area. And so when we look at Houston's normal monthly rainfall, we usually see June being our wettest month throughout the entire year. That's when we receive the most rain. So again, this is not uncommon for us to see wet conditions in the month of June here across Houston, even though that we have seen flooding rains in other parts of the year, especially out in May and even during the spring months. And it's definitely seeing we've also see wet conditions out in the month of October as well. So just an important reminder that wet conditions for the month of June, we are tracking a new system out in the Atlantic that has a 10% chance of development for the next 2 days. That's very low, and we're not expecting this to really strengthen all that much. And if it does strengthen into something, it's going to be moving off towards the northeast. And once that happens, that usually comes into contact with cooler waters up near the upper levels of the areas of latitude, but we are expecting it to be mostly just quiet. We still have Saharan dust that's currently south of there, another plume of it moving over the Atlantic basin, and that is going to be moving into our neck of the woods by the end of this next week. And like I said, the Pacific side of hurricane season, we've seen already a lot of activity. It's also not uncommon for the Pacific to be busy during this time of year. They usually get a head start on hurricane season out in the Pacific basin, but there's another area just south of Central America that has a 70% chance of development within the next 7 days. Of course, that's not going to pose a threat to the U.S. or Texas. And so what we're mainly tracking is the hot and muggy conditions for today, isolated downpours possible through this afternoon and then lasting through much of the week. And we're already starting to see those feels like temps ranging between 90 to 93 degrees, especially if you're heading out the door this morning. And so ultimately, we're going to see Sunday's forecast look a little bit like this with high temps in the 90s. Rain chances during the afternoon hours, and so those feels like temps feeling as hot as around, maybe I'd say, as we kind of fast forward this to 3 p.m. It's going to feel as hot as 100, 101 at Bush Airport, Pasadena at 100 degrees, Crystal Beach at 93 degrees. But if you're planning to escape the heat, just keep in mind that if you're heading to Galveston, of course, you could definitely see cooler conditions along the coast, but just be on the lookout for those isolated showers that we usually see out along the coastal areas, with a high of 88 out in Galveston for this afternoon. So as for your marine forecast, southeast winds at 10 miles an hour. Be extra cautious for those rip current risk as we head into later today. And we're already starting to see those very tiny downpours, isolated showers moving into the coastal areas. And of course, once we head into the afternoon hours, the sea breeze frontal boundary likely to bring those showers inland, becoming a bit more widespread as we head into the afternoon hours. And so just be on the lookout for those showers, especially north of I-10 as we head into this afternoon, going into around the 2 o'clock to 3 p.m. hours. So as we look at our 7-day forecast, highs in the 90s, lows in the 70s, rain chances ramping up starting tomorrow, and we will start seeing them become more widespread as we head into Tuesday and Wednesday. And so just keep in mind that your afternoon commute may be a little bit wet, and be extra cautious on those roadways, especially if you are heading across our area highways. And as always, we're tracking the latest weather forecast in terms of the tropics and all daily weather happenings on KHOU.com. I'm meteorologist Chris Ramirez.